Hello, my loves. I put together this PowerPoint to review some important information about characters and characterization, which is something that you're definitely going to want to look for when you're doing a prose essay. So you don't have to watch this video. If you can just go through the information and the PowerPoint, do that. If not, I'm going to walk you through it, and then you will have an assignment where you can practice that today. So, characterization is the compilation of the different ways that the author will show you about his or her characters. All right. Now, normally this happens in a very specific way, and this is just something to look for. I think that many of you have expressed that you don't know where to start, or you don't know where to begin, or you feel like you're missing something important. And so, if you just take in and think about, all right, let me look at the narration, let me look at the point of view, let me look at the diction, the dialogue, the contrast, it's going to give you a place to start. And that will then inevitably at least allow you to begin analyzing and then begin writing and hopefully overcome any obstacles that would prevent you or make you feel like you're stuck. So more you're I kind of the way I organize this slide, and thinking of different columns here of your how is this the narration, like what is the voice of the narrator. So here we have first person, second person, or third person. Second person is not going to happen that often. I've seen it done occasionally, but you probably won't get that. There's one by I believe it's Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, where it's a prisoner and he is talking directly to the reader. So that would be something definitely. If you notice second person, that would be something to comment on. But it's not something that happens often. So most likely you're looking at first person or third person. So first person is when the narrator is the character, and writes from his or her own perspective. So you'll see words like I or me, and you'll get a lot more internal, um, often get a lot more internal dialogue. Second person is the you. The narrator speaks directly to the reader. And then third person is the narrator is outside, is not a character, and it's sort of outside the story and telling the story. You'll see then the third person pronouns he, she, them, they, that kind of thing. Another aspect to the narration is if the narrator is limited or omniscient. Omniscient meaning all knowing. So the narrator knows what everyone knows versus the narrator only knows what the main character knows, or maybe a secondary character, but it's limited. Like literally what the narrator can share with you, the reader, is limited versus the narrator knows everything and can share everything with you. So then you are, by extension, also know more. And then lastly, we have the reliability of the narrator. Do you trust what this narrator is saying? And there's many different factors. If that would play into this, like if the narrator's age, perhaps, if they are a young child, then maybe they're not going to understand what they're seeing and experiencing, and so then the way that information is coming to us might end up not being completely true. Or perhaps you have noticed after reading with this character for a while that they have a history, and maybe then you choose not to necessarily believe everything they say. So you have reliable narrator or an unreliable narrator. So there's different factors that play into that. But you're ultimately asking yourself, do I believe what this narrator is telling me or not? Now, point of view is the I looking through. Okay. A story might be told in third person from the main character's point of view, or perhaps from a side character. So if you're getting an omniscient narrator, who's telling about the main character, right? That would say then the point of view is from that character. Or perhaps it's from a side character and the side character is looking and kind of watching and observing what's happening. If a story uses first person, it's likely that that is from that character's point of view. Then you wouldn't say like I or me and then have somebody else's perspective. That doesn't really make a lot of sense. And a story might be third person and then switch point of view. This is the new trend in stories, is that each chapter sort of switches to a different character. So the narrator is third person and is definitely omniscient and knows everything, but then depending on the chapter that you're in, you might get one character or another. Now, diction and dialogue, I put them on the same slide here because they connect. So diction is words, and then a dialogue is what is being said. Now, what is being said could be said internally, like in their mind, or it could be out loud. So if you have external dialogue, that's the stuff that comes up in quotes. If you have internal dialogue, it's the thoughts that the characters are having. For diction, you have the connotation of the word, which is the association, and then you have the denotation of the word, which is the meaning of it. So literally what it means versus how do we feel about it. Something like the word ignorant, right? Ignorant kind of has a negative connotation where it seems like an insult. Whether it just means that you're lacking knowledge, that doesn't mean anything necessarily negative, but we place that association on it. Now, the words a character uses then, so the diction that might show up in the dialogue, or internal or external, then could tell us something about the character. So, for example, if you look over at this at Benny here, he says, "Please pardon my appearance, my dear." Now, the fact that he says pardon, I mean my absence. I'm sorry. So please pardon my absence. So rather than saying like, "Hey, sorry, I was out or away," right? It's saying, "Please pardon my absence." And even the use of the word pardon maybe is indicative of a certain class, perhaps. And then we also have my dear. So whoever Benny is talking to here, he has a close relationship with whoever he's speaking to because he calls him or her my dear, as opposed to like and the fact that he would apologize in the first place obviously denotes that they would know each other, but then also the fact that it says my dear would imply that it's a very close relationship. It's not just, oh, I know who you are. It's we have a closer relationship. So that's what I'm talking about, why diction and dialogue are often connected here. Last, I have contrast. Now, contrasts are going to show up in almost everything, and that's because stories would be really boring if everyone was all the same. So you want to look for instances of opposite, and it could be in the way characters speak. It could be in their perspectives, their beliefs, their appearances, their class, their religion, anything. Now, all of those aspects will influence the choices a character makes. So if you notice that one character is from a high class and one character is from a low class, well, then obviously that background is going to influence the way that they act. And it might even cause them to not get along. Now, looking and identifying these contrasts and where they're really coming from is what's going to lead you to an arguable thesis that is an interpretation. You're not just saying two characters don't get along, you're saying it's the class difference between them that's the reason that they don't get along or will never get along. It's the difference in their religious beliefs that causes, it influences their choices. So this is why this can be really important, because it's going to lead you to an arguable thesis. You're taking a stance, you're making an interpretation, and I can easily argue against you. You could say it has to do with their class, and I'm going to say, no, this has nothing to do with class. It really has to do with their religion or appearances, right? Anything else. So that becomes really important. And so for a lot of you that wrote that you're struggling with a thesis statement and making something that's arguable and not just a restatement of the prompt, this is where you're getting into that, is what is motivating the characters. Great. Now that I've gone over this, I want you to go ahead and open the assignment from today. For today, you're going to read an excerpt, and then I have a handout that kind of walks you through the process of really looking deeper into how these things manifest themselves in an actual